Okay, one of the things I'm going to show you today is how to navigate the textbook. And I'm hoping you have access to it. If not, you will over the next few days. But I want to show you that you have a home page and you have all the different units here. And I've opened up Chapter 4 because that's where we're working. And I'm going to go to the section of Chapter 4 which talks about sampling and surveying. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through that section. So we need information if we're going to understand a population better. So a population is going to be the entire group of individuals about which we want information. So the population, we often refer to it as the population of interest because that is what we're interested in finding out about. The sample is going to be the part of the population from which we actually collect that information, and then we use that information to draw conclusions about the entire population. So I'd love for you to kind of skim through some of this when you have time, just looking at some of the different problems here. And I think one of the questions on our note says, what is the icon? It's a large ice cream cone. Just want you to be able to navigate the book. So we're going to talk first about a sample survey. A sample survey is a study that uses an organized plan to choose a sample that represents some specific population. So we want to ask some questions, we want some information about the population, so we're going to create a sample and then we're going to ask them some questions. And those questions will be called surveys. So we make conclusions about the population, sorry about that, on data from the sample. So we'll read a little bit about that. So how do we sample? Well, we want to sample with the appropriate sampling techniques. So the first way to not sample is called a convenience sample. Basically just choosing those people that are the most accessible, the easiest to reach. And this will typically result in something called bias. Bias is the design or the result of a statistical study that's been designed inappropriately, and it will systematically favor certain outcomes. And I'm going to give you an example of that in just a second. Another way you don't want to sample is called the voluntary response sample. A voluntary response sample consists of people who choose themselves by responding to a general appeal. And I know you've heard many times people say, call in and give us your opinions about one thing or the other. Or sometimes you might have some sort of form or a card to fill out after an appointment or after going to a restaurant to visit. And typically the people that take the time to fill out or to offer their opinion are people that feel strongly. More often than not, they are people that are not happy with something. So that would be the problem with the voluntary response sample. Okay, simple random sampling, we're going to leave that for tomorrow, and we're going to pick up with that when we're talking about the way you do want to sample. So go to your Chapter 4 notes here. So it says, what's the difference between a population and a sample? I am so sorry, the band was playing out in the hall and it was just a little loud. So under the notes, we're going to summarize what we just talked about. So the difference between a population and a sample is the population is the group of individuals for which we want information, and the sample is part of the population, and we hope that it represents the population, of course, from which we actually collect the information. And then a census is actually a survey of the entire population. So it's rare that you're actually going to do a census, but basically you would survey every person in the population. So that's census. Okay, so the icon at the end of page, or the first example, was an ice cream cone, and it looked very yummy. Okay. Now, and that was really just to get you to navigate the book a little bit more. So what's the problem with a convenience sample? So a convenient sample can either over or underestimate some true value that we're interested in, okay? So say we're interested in finding out the proportion of the population that supports athletic cuts, or cuts to the athletic budget, I should say. So if we will know the true proportion of the population that support cuts to the athletic budget, and we went to a football game and we asked the question, do you support cuts to the athletic budget? Okay, so in this case, you're at a particular convenient location just asking a question, do you support cuts to the athletic budget? Well, if you're at a football game, those people support football. They more than likely support athletics in general. So more than likely, most of the people at the game will say that no, they don't support, but they oppose the cuts to the athletic budget. So this is going to probably underestimate the true proportion of those who support the cuts. So at a football game, you may get a 25% rate for those that support cuts, whereas the true proportion may be something more like 50 or 60%. But it would be because you had designed a study in which you were using a convenient sample. Okay, let's go to the next little section. So what is bias? Bias is going to be using some sort of method for creating your sample well, I have it right here and I should use them right there. So using a sampling method that consistently over or underestimates the value. So consistently over or underestimates the value that we want to know. So and it's sort of like a systematic error, like it systematically does it over and over and over, the way that you're designing the sample. So what's a voluntary response sample? Is this a good method for obtaining a sample? This is not a good sampling method. It consists of people who volunteer by responding to a general appeal. Those who respond typically have strong opinions. This would also lead to bias. Okay? Now, I would like for you to look at page 211. I'm going to end it there, but I want you to look at page 211 and look at the check your understanding, and we will talk about that tomorrow. And the only other thing is make sure you know your homework tonight. This will be assignment number 2. It's going to be page 226, 1, 3, 7, 8, and 9. And again, we'll have that complete tomorrow. We'll talk about that as well. And you guys have a great day.